102 FM. Game On's Fantasy Football.
Yes, you're very welcome along to the Game On Fantasy Football podcast. It is Game Week 28. Yes, we are 2/3 the way through the season. Frightening, but true. Joined in studio by Phil McGrath from FantasyPremierLeagueTransfers.com. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, it is good morning. The sun is shining.
It's morning. Yeah, okay, we'll go with good. Okay.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Yeah, well. Right, straight in to... Well, should we have a little quick look back at Game Week 27? Because lots of things
I'd
happened.
rather just move on, actually, if you don't mind.
Yes, I can imagine that. Phil didn't have the best week, but that's what you get when you have it's squeaky bum time and you're at the top of the table. Chelsea 1-0 winners over Everton, and the goal scored by John Terry, and the assist from Frank Lampard. It was like the olden days. Back in Stamford Bridge, they beat Everton 1-0. Arsenal 4, Sunderland 1, Koscielny, Rosicky and 2 from Giroud. Assists from Cazorla and Giroud as well. So a fine week for the French striker. Sunderland got a goal through Giaccherini, which wasn't bad as well. He also got a yellow card. Cardiff City 0, Hull City 4.
Didn't see that coming.
A noteworthy score. Huddleston, Livermore and 2 from Jelavic, and assists from Rosignor, El Mohammadi, Livermore and Long. So free scoring Hull. Maybe a time to move into some Hull players. Man City 1-0 winners over Stoke City. Not pretty but effective. Yaya Toure got the goal. The assist came from Kolarov.
And Edin Dzeko's a donkey.
Yeah, and Edin Dzeko is a big tall lad. And he may resemble a donkey sometimes. West Brom 1, Fulham 1. West Brom held again. Poor El Pepe Mel, the draw specialist.
He's under pressure now as well.
He is. Big pressure. Vidra with their goal. The assist from Anichebe.
And like the Jack.
And Maggot at Fulham. De Jaga.
Yeah, they worked together at where was this?
Some German club.
Yeah, was it Dortmund?
Yeah.
I can't remember now, but yeah.
The assist from Richardson for Fulham, which got them a point. West Ham, I think it's 4 on the bounce now for the Hammers. 3-1 winners over Southampton. Nolan, Jarvis and Cole, the goals. Assist from Nolan and Cole. Yoshida got the goal for Southampton, a defender's goal. Assist from Stephen Davis.
Am I the only one that thinks Yoshida should be like a Pokemon or something? Just, or for Mortal Kombat or so. It sounds like something you'd shout for a finishing move. Just
finish him.
Yeah. Yoshida! No?
I'm talking!
Yeah, basically.
All right.
That's kind of
fair enough. Crystal Palace, stick it in the muffin mix. Crystal Palace 0, Manchester United 2. Speroni with 3 saves. It was the only point scorer for Palace players.
Yeah.
Van Persie and Rooney with the goals for United. Assists, both of them from Evra. That was the story there. Liverpool 4, Swansea 3, 2 from Henderson, 2 from Sturridge, assists from Sterling, Sturridge and Suarez. And for Swansea, Shelvey only got 2, and Dyer and De Guzman with the assists. Vorm made 6 saves, so that just shows you how many chances Liverpool are creating up front. And the lads gave us stats about how many the chances they were creating a few weeks ago, so you'll remember that from previous pods. Newcastle, at last they got back to winning ways, and coinciding with
that.
Yeah, well, it's probably Remy. Having Remy up front doesn't do their cause any harm. The assist from De Jong, so that was good news.
Yeah, I think that's the first attacking returns he's picked up now since he joined Newcastle.
Yes,
methinks.
Yes, I think so. And Norwich with the goal, and their best player Snodgrass got the goal.
Again, didn't see that coming.
1-0 win over Spurs. No,
especially on the road.
Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw that coming.
Then again, I have said, and I've said it here before,
Norwich
defence
miserly.
Home is very, very miserly. I think of all the teams in the bottom half of the table, they've got the best home defence.
Johnson with the assist there. And yellow cards, plenty of them. Dawson, Vertonghen and Dembele for Spurs. Yes, indeed. So that was Game Week 27. And let's march straight into Game Week 28. Happens like that with numbers, that one follows the other. If they're being consecutive, which just makes their job slightly easier. Right, Game Week 28, there aren't 10 games, there are 8 games. So, 8. So what do you want to do? Do you want to have 3 focus games, or will we rattle through the whole lot of them?
So let's rattle through a lot of them.
Right.
Just because selection, I mean, let's be honest about it, Ruth. There's 4 teams not playing.
Yes.
Of those 4 teams, you're not going to have any players from one, being West Brom.
All right,
If you do, chances are they're on your bench.
Right, so
really you're struggling to
the
cover
teams that aren't playing this week, just
City,
to be clear.
United,
City,
West Brom and
Sunderland.
Sorry,
Yes.
Southampton,
So
Sunderland,
United, City, Sunderland,
and West Brom.
and West Brom. All right, aren't playing. So let's start with the first games. We'll go in order. Everton and West Ham, 2 teams. Well, I suppose Hammer's form is a bit better than Everton's form
Yeah, I think
recently.
they're unbeaten in 5. They've won their last 4 in the trot. So I mean, West Ham have picked it up, and I mean, I said it last week. I listened to an interview with Big Sam, and he's kind of said I haven't really done anything a whole lot different. It's just players back in form, getting lads back from injury. I don't know.
Let's start with the home team.
Yeah, that's what the don't know is about.
It's well, it's also, there's a few don't knows in here, but we can narrow it down. Coleman is the perennial favourite at the back. I don't see too many people getting rid of Coleman at this point, if they have him. So he's your defender. Any other Everton defenders catching your eye? Not in recent weeks.
I mean, I think I heard the news this morning. Jagielka's out now. He's got a hamstring injury, so he's not going to be around for a couple of weeks. That's a big blow to Everton because he has been ever present this season. Obviously, the Baines and Distan there, and probably Stones will come in alongside Distan. I think he deputised well for Distan.
4.2, he could be a bit of value if you fancy it.
I honestly don't think that we'll see a clean sheet out of Everton. I can't remember the last clean sheet Everton got. I'm going to have to check this now, which is strange. Last clean sheet came back in Gameweek 21 against Norwich, which is a while away now when you consider how well Everton's defence had been doing. But yeah, for me, as far as Everton go, points-wise, I don't fancy them for the clean sheet this week. And the only one, I mean, Lukaku was due back. We're expecting him back this week. He'd be the only one I'd be looking to if he is fit. However, I'm always a bit sceptical of players who come back from injury, to give them a week or two to get back to match fitness.
I mean, Morales is the best form player for Everton.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at what he's been doing, the returns aren't really there.
For that sort of money,
not to justify $7.5 million.
No.
And
yeah, so
I think at this point we should probably mention the blanks in game week 29, and that is going to have a bearing on squad selections this week because you're trying to kind of minimise your exposure to the blanks next week. So, I mean, while it's unavoidable certainly to have players who can play this week that are going to be sitting out next week, you need to be mindful about making your transfers that you bringing a player in just for the 1 week. No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You can bring a player in that's going to play this week and have a blank next week.
But just realise there's consequences for next week.
You need to have cover, in your mind. You need to know what you're going to do with that. Or if it's a case that it's a player you want to bring in for now, between now and the end of the season, well then certainly if you're going to stick him on a bench for a week, there's no real damage caused, I suppose.
Alright.
But for Everton-wise, if Lukaku's back fit, he's probably worth a look. Morales is probably the best of the Everton midfielders to be. But he's
expensive.
He is.
Alright.
West Ham, of course, on the other side of things, Kevin Nolan is the man on form. I think he's 5 goals and 1 assist in his last 4 games.
Yeah, I surprised myself a couple of weeks ago. Usually I pick a player and that signals him on a huge run of bad form or a bad injury.
Falls
or has a disciplinary mare and gets a red card or bites someone or does something a bit crazy. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago I bought James Collins and then he scored me a rake of points. So I had a little feeling, and it's worked out. It's too early to get me singing. Too early to get me singing. So that's my big shout. James Collins at the back, 4.3, which was the reason. His value was the reason I sort of went for him, and it's worked out for me. But there you have it. That's my tip at the back.
Yeah, again,
he's getting forward a good bit.
He is. I mean, it's very difficult to look at either of these sides for clean sheets. I mean, Everton have picked up 23 goals in 12 home games. West Ham's away record isn't great. They've only managed 11 goals in 13 games. But with the recent turn in form, I think a large portion of the stats are skewed by a bad start to the season. So now, if we look at it more recently, certainly their goals ratio has picked up, and I do think we can expect more from them.
Well, Kevin Nolan is one of the form players of the whole game at the moment.
Well, if you look at it,
and at 7, I mean, he's a much better prospect than Morales.
Yes, almost certainly. I think he is. I mean, if you look at West Ham's results, 3-1, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, and a 0-0 draw against Chelsea. You know, so that they are scoring goals,
and they're very tight at the back all of a sudden.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Kevin Nolan is certainly worth a look at that price. Again, you need to be mindful that you know, there's no West Ham don't play next week, so if you're bringing him in for this week, but I think he is one of those players who you can hold on to for the next couple of weeks. But
also, and it has to be said, for the price, Noble, Jarvis, and Downing, if you're in the market and you can't afford a Kevin Nolan for 5.2, 5, and 5.8, there's still a bit of potential value if you believe in West Ham. Obviously, we're not telling you to.
I'm not overly impressed by them at the moment. West Ham have turned it around all right, and you're going to pick up points here and there. But I think of anyone really, it has to be Nolan. Andy Carroll is another interesting prospect. He's
when's he back?
He's due back this week.
Is he due back this week?
So maybe. Maybe.
Keep an eye on it anyway. It's given the fact that they don't have a game in game week 29,
it's a little bit off, but certainly to consider for the rest of the season.
Right, let's get to the maggot. They're Craven Cottage, Fulham hosting Chelsea. It'll be interesting to see. They've got a draw. They're off under the new manager.
Yeah.
So let's.
Medicine balls.
They're hosting Chelsea, so I presume this is going to be pretty quick. Obviously, Maggot likes Reether. And he's a couple of players in there he's played with before. Your man. Maybe Holtby. Has he played with Holtby before? And Retha.
I'm not sure about Holtby.
But I mean, he's got a big squad.
Well, listen, we know that.
And so, you know.
Yeah, listen, it's Chelsea all day long.
It's Chelsea all day long. Let's not waste time.
Either way it is.
We had a look there. We gave you a look.
Yeah, no.
It lasted 20 seconds.
Selling, I'm not buying.
Yeah, even though I'm not buying it.
Yeah, listen, Chelsea are one of those teams who are fortunate enough to play in game week 28 and 29, so certainly you're looking at probably, you know, filling your complement of Chelsea players going into the next 2 weeks for coverage. Now, they do play Tottenham next week, so, you know, you're going to have to look at that and make up your own mind as to how you see that result going, but certainly a trip to Craven Cottage I wouldn't fear. You know, Chelsea are unbeaten now, certainly in the last 6. I think it even goes back further. And it's clean sheet at the back anyway.
They've got games for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, they're good.
So
to cover those blanks.
Feel free to buy Chelsea players.
Yeah, I mean, right, let's just chalk it out there. It's, you know, Cech, Ivanovic at the back. I think they're the ones to be looking at. Certainly this week I fancy Chelsea for the clean sheet going to the Cottage. Eden Hazard again for me is still the man to be considering. Oscar has been off sorts. In fact, if I was to have anyone else bar Hazard, I'd actually look to Ramirez, not Oscar. Mourinho's come out recently and said, you know, Oscar was the form player at the start of the season. He puts it down to fatigue now. At this point, he thinks that Oscar's, you know, he's played a lot of football over the last 2 years, and I think that's starting to catch up with him possibly. But Hazard's still the man to be looking at.
Those
there.
Brazilians need to be redone regularly.
They do, yeah. You can't just leave them, you know, leave them run.
No, that's dangerous. It gets messy.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think certainly Hazard is the one in the midfield.
What about Azpilicueta for a bit of for a cheaper back option, 5.6?
Listen, certainly if you can't afford to bring in Ivanovic, I'd have no qualms about bringing in another Chelsea defender. I just think, as we've seen with his recent attacking returns, that, you know, Ivanovic is getting forward that bit more. He is getting you points, and you know, it's hard to ignore that. That's why he's there. But certainly the Chelsea defence as a whole, I would invest in going into this week, and you know, next week is probably somewhat of an unknown quantity given the fact that they play Spurs, and we'll have to wait and see what way they kind of pan out. But yeah, you'd fancy Chelsea all day long. And then there's
Hazard still is the form player.
Yeah, well, I mean, the question is then, do you invest in Torres after his goal in Champions League, or
the answer to this question for the last 4 years has been no. So I'm going to keep going with that.
Well, listen, if Jose Mourinho's come out and said he has no strikers, that kind of tells you everything you need to know, which I thought was gas. But fair play to him.
It was a funny comment.
It's one way of telling the you know, the board, I want money, give me money, I need strikers, you know, and that's what that was. You know, Eto'o, well, he's 32, maybe he's 35, who knows. I need strikers. But yeah, I mean, certainly I'd be looking to fill my complement the Chelsea players. So probably, you know, you're looking at Cech, Ivanovic, any of the Chelsea defenders really, but Ivanovic will be my top one. Hazard obviously there, and if I had to pick another, I'd go Ramirez.
All right. Let's move on to the next game. One of the form teams, Hull City.
Yeah,
up
do you
against
know what?
Newcastle.
This pleases me greatly. I have a little soft spot for Hull, and it kind of goes back to their last stint in the Premier League. With it was a Phil Brown, was the manager, and he left them all out in the centre circle and gave us halftime team talk, and then obviously there was the goal celebration with Jimmy Bullard afterwards. Then when they scored, and there was, and ever since then I've kind of had a little spot for them. But certainly I'm very pleased to see them doing quite well. When you're looking at their stats at home this season. Again, a little bit like we spoke about last week, the first half of the season, their goal scoring stats are a little askew because they weren't really doing it. But obviously, Long and Jelavic have come in now and completely transformed the side. Yeah, great bit of business by Steve Bruce.
Yeah, they've really clicked. They really gelled with each other.
And considering Jelavic couldn't buy a goal at Everton this season, it was so. Hull at home have a tight defence. They've 6 clean sheets at home this season, and they've only conceded 10 goals. Newcastle, of course, as we know, haven't been on a great run of form recently, and obviously we know they won last week. But away from home, their goal scoring record isn't great either. They've only put in 15 goals in 13 games. I think
Remy is back, and he does make a huge difference to Newcastle.
No, well, listen, there's no doubt about it. He does, but he does also need a huge amount of chances to convert. And my big fear is that they may not get those chances.
You going for a home win?
I am going for a home win. I'm going for a clean sheet, and I'm going for a home win.
So, of the Hull defenders, I mean, we have to have the cheap options here. Figueroa, 4.4. He's in good form. Davies, 4.7. And now Rosier, McShane, and Bruce are injured. So they've got...
Yeah, I think Liam Rosier will be all right.
Okay.
I think he'll play. Now, the problem I have with Rosier is I'm not sure where he'll play. Because such as the injury works, he is very versatile. He has played left and
They've
right.
Got a small little
he's played
squad.
Left and right back this season, and I think he's even played a spot in the middle. But for me, if I was going for anyone, it would be Maynard Figueroa. Yeah. We know what he's capable of. We've seen him at Wigan. He's
got a few good points recently as well.
Yeah, so I'll be looking to him this week. I think I do fancy Hull for the clean sheet, but I think now the big question is Long or Jelavic.
Yeah, well, before we get to that one, I have another smaller question, but in the middle of the park.
Livermore, Huddleston.
Yeah. 4.7, 4.8. I mean, just for that squad player, they're good squad players. They play every week. They score points every week. Almost. They have.
Well, they get
recently.
2 points for turning up, so that's a start.
It is a start. Yeah. Right, then go back into your big question.
Yeah, I mean, certainly midfield-wise there...
It's the Jelavic road or the long road?
Yeah, do you want to follow the Jelavic road or take the long road? Personally, because it's cheaper, as generally it is when you have to go the long way around.
Yes.
So that's Shane Long, 5.7.
The long way round.
The long way around. I'd have to go with him. The Irish connection helps, certainly. But I do think he offers a lot more.
Yeah, well, 1.2 million in the difference.
I think,
helps.
but not just that. I do think he genuinely offers a bit more to Hull. We know Jelavic obviously picked up 2 goals last week, but Jelavic, and even at his time at Everton, his assist ratio wasn't great. It was either he scored or you got nothing out of him. Whereas Long is a bit more versatile. We've seen what he's capable.
His speed is unbelievable.
He can come short. He can hold the ball up. He can lay it off, and then he'll make that dart and run. And that's what his game is about. He likes the ball into feet, torn, gone.
He's quick and he's fast and he's very, very strong. I think he jumps very, very high.
I think 5.7 is certainly, the price is going to play a factor in this one. But for me, if I had the money to choose between either, I would certainly be going with Shane Long. I'm not overly convinced by Hull's midfield. I think there's better midfield options out there, albeit certainly not that cheap, which of course you are going to need to maybe if you want to splash out up top, you might need something like that. And if I had to pick one of the midfielders in there, I would be going for Livermore.
Okay. Right, let's move on. We're not going to touch Newcastle.
No, I'm not. No. I genuinely am. And
no.
Again, I used to like Newcastle 1 or 2 in there, but they're just not.
At the moment,
not clicking for me. No, Remy's the only one there, but I'm not holding out much hope from this week.
Okay.
But it is, I suppose, worth noting that Hull are another of those sides who don't play next week. So again, if you're bringing in the likes of Long or Jelavic, or you're bringing in Figueroa at the back, they're not going to play next week. But they are genuinely that cheap that they're the type of player you could pop on your bench and not worry too much about.
But they are so cheap, they're not going to be that much more expensive in 2 weeks' time. So
that's also true.
Keep it in the back of your mind. Right, let's move on. Stoke City and Arsenal, 3:00 start on Saturday. Before we get to Arsenal, let's go just do Stoke quickly. because it's a quicker conversation, obviously. Charlie Adam in the middle of the park, 5.2 in current form. He's rocketing in, I suppose, in comparison to the other teammates. But Stoke, no points really here.
Well, yeah, I mean, Charlie Adam is probably the best. I mean, I seen an interview with him during the week, and he kind of said that Mark Hughes has come in and given him the freedom to play the type of football he wants to play, but has also taught him where he shouldn't be, and what positions he shouldn't be caught in, and what area of the pitch he shouldn't be playing in. Looking at midfielders over the last 6 weeks, Charlie Adam has been there or thereabouts. I mean, he's had 18 shots over the last 6 weeks, but the only problem I have with that, which is actually quite high, I'd probably quantify that with the fact that the most amount of attempts on target over the last 6 weeks from a midfielder has been 22. The only problem I have with that is that only 2 of those have come inside the box, so that's a major problem. You know, now, having said that, we've seen the goals he scored. He can ping him in from outside the box, no problem.
When they do go in, they're nice.
You know, but he is creating chances, which is good. It's not just about taking them. He is creating.
One probably for the watch list for the moment.
For the moment, I think certainly. But again, when you're looking at the fixtures, Stoke do play next week. They face Norwich next week, so certainly could be one to consider. With the game against Arsenal this week, it's a little tricky. But Arsenal away from home haven't got the best clean sheet record either. So I mean, looking at the Gunners on their travels this season, they've only picked up 3 clean sheets. They've conceded 20 goals. Is it? Yeah, 20 goals in 13 games. Would you back Arsenal for a clean sheet? Not necessarily in this one. I think Stoke are playing a more expansive style of football, which, looking at Arsenal, is going to leave Stoke open.
In previous years, Stoke would have approached this and tried to bully Arsenal off the
ball. Well, listen,
ball.
we know what Stoke are about under Pulis. Mark Hughes is trying to get them to play more football, keep the ball on the deck, but they're suffering at the back for that cause. So, I mean, yes, certainly Charlie Adam is worth a look. I wouldn't be looking elsewhere really, particularly. I don't fancy the Stoke defence because of the way they're playing now, but also because of the fact that they are pushing on. It's going to leave gaps at the back. We know Cazorla's going to be back in the side, or not Cazorla, sorry, Ozil will be back in the Arsenal lineup this week. You know, that's already been confirmed that he will play, having missed out last week. And I think Vermaelen is back as well, if I heard Arsene Wenger correctly. He should be back and fit. I actually think that Arsenal could pick up a clean sheet this week. And for me, I'd actually have a look at Mertesacker at 6.6. I know he's the most expensive Arsenal defender, but when you look at Koscielny's it out, Gibbs it out, Monreal is it out, now Vermaelen should be back. But I think Mertesacker is probably a better option. And then Ozil coming back, do you invest that money in him?
Yeah, no for 9.7.
No was the answer we've seen.
Sanya, by the way, is the only defender you didn't mention. He's the only one I have, the Arsenal defender, and at 5.7.
Yeah, do you know what?
Form is good as well. He's actually got more current form than Mertesacker, would you believe?
Yes, but he's not really
he's 5.7. That's the only reason I mentioned him.
Yeah, and I fancied him last week for a clean sheet. He was in our tips. He's been in our tips a couple of times, but unfortunately just hasn't really produced it. You know, he's got, I think, 2 assists in the last 8 weeks, which, you know, isn't a bad return, but for a player who gets forward as much as he does, it's pretty poor because his final delivery isn't that good.
Apart from Ozil in the midfield,
well, listen, I wouldn't even say
Cazorla.
I wouldn't even say apart from Ozil. I wouldn't have Ozil. I'd have
call him Orla if you like.
Well, it's a mix of Ozil and Cazorla. Orla. But I'd have Cazorla before I'd have Ozil.
Something about Orla.
Yeah. But for me, I think the points for Arsenal this week will come up front, and I think Giroud is back with a bang. No pun intended. And at 8.7, I'd certainly think, you know, he'll do well this week. He doesn't play next week. That's the problem, and we all know the issues.
Whatever's happened to him recently, he's got the scoring boots back on. Yeah,
well, listen, he you know, being dropped for Arsenal against Munich, Sonogo coming in, that's got to be a giant kick in the you-know-what's. But he's lucky at the same time, because he's lucky Arsenal need strikers. I think if Arsenal had cover, he would languish, but Arsenal can't afford to leave him on the bench. I think he has to play. 2 goals and assists last week. I'd fancy him for more this week. Like I said, Stoke are pushing forward now, trying to play a better brand of football, and all credit to them for it, but I think Arsenal will pick them off, and Giroud will make them punish.
Right, next up it is Southampton and Liverpool. That's the evening game on Saturday. Tough game for Liverpool. Free scoring
They lost this one. They lost the reverse of this fixture earlier on in the season, 1-0 at Anfield, which is a great result for Southampton. Listen, Southampton have been playing well this season. They went through a bit of a mid-season slump, but they're back again. They're playing well.
Fonte at the back, Yoshida, as we mentioned. Whoa!
Yep.
Hadouken! Yoshida! Is that the one you wanted?
That's the one I wanted.
Yoshida at the back. Fonte as well. And I suppose Yoshida is 4. Fonte is 5.4. Lallana continues to impress. As does Stephen Davis, the cheaper option for Southampton recently. 8.1 for Lallana, 4.7 for Stephen Davis. And up front then it is Lambert 7.2, Rodriguez 6.6. We all know we want Lambert if we're going to go for that one, aren't we? If you're going to go there. Of Rodriguez and Lambert?
Probably so.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to choose between the pair, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
But for me, last week's result, losing 3-1 to West Ham, was probably a kick in the behind that Southampton needed. And I think Pochettino will...
Kicking the little Pochettino.
Yeah, kicking the Pochettino. They'll need that because... that's a game they shouldn't really be losing. Now I know they're reasonably comfortable, but still, you'd have it's not acceptable. Do I fancy Southampton for a clean sheet in this one?
No.
I think the answer for that has to be no.
Okay.
However, do I fancy Liverpool for a clean sheet in this one? The answer is also no, because Liverpool don't do clean sheets anymore, especially now when they've got Colo Touré in there. But so for me on the Southampton side of things, I think Lallana at 8.1 is most certainly one to be looking at going into the weekend at home against Liverpool. And Southampton do play in game week 29, so certainly you could do a lot worse there. Now I know a large proportion of managers already have him, but if you don't, certainly he's well worth a look this week. And then you're looking up front, Lambert, Rodriguez, again with Southampton playing next week. Maybe no harm in investing in the Southampton striker. They play Palace at Selhurst Park next week, so although they're on the road, probably not the world's most difficult game. No disrespect to Palace, but
Word of warning for Liverpool, by the way, they're not playing next week, and they're facing the following week. They're playing the might of Manchester United. Yes. Maybe next week buy into them, but
I wouldn't.
I suppose it's the usual suspects.
Everyone has
anyway.
their Liverpool players, so there's no point in saying I wouldn't buy into Liverpool this week. Everyone has them already. There's no one really that you're going to be looking at going, I'm bringing them, definitely going to bring them in for this week.
Flanagan 4.3, is he going to keep that run going?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I would imagine he will continue to play. Henderson last week, good goal. Yeah.
Okay.
We know it's Sterling for me. It's Sterling at 5.7. Is probably his game time is being curtailed, but he's still picking up points. And then it's Sturridge is out, Sean Suarez, and that's for the obvious reasons. That's Suarez is no longer playing out, and now he's been pushed out wide, and Sturridge is playing through the middle now, and he's getting the lion's share of the chances. And in fairness to him, he's converting them, and you can't argue with it. So, what I wouldn't be bringing any Liverpool players in going into next week with a blank, but certainly if I have them, I'm going to play them this week. But just be mindful that you're going to need to have cover for them.
All right. Next game. This is an interesting one. This is Aston Villa at home to Norwich, and I know you sold Benteke. I presume you're not. Well, I suppose we're managing game time and player time. Aston Villa have no game next week, and then they're following. So they're at home to Norwich this week. They've no game, and then they're at home to Chelsea. So probably not the best time of the season to be buying in here.
Villa for me at the back is the only place worth looking, and believe it or not, it's actually when they're away from home. Their setup away from home suits them a whole lot better than it does at home. For me, Norwich do play next week, and certainly there's one man worth looking at as far as I'm concerned, and that's Robert Snodgrass. I mean, he picked up the goal last week for Norwich against Tottenham, and I'm always mindful of players picking up goals to say, well, was that just a freak of nature, or is there something more behind it? And again, I've looked at the stats behind Snodgrass over the last couple of weeks, and to say it's been coming is probably an understatement.
Oh yeah, he's been a great player since he's been at Leeds, like a proper player.
Yeah, he's actually produced more efforts on goal than any other midfielder in the league. Over the last 6 weeks, and considering he's only played 5 of the last 6 games, that'll tell you why. So even playing 90 minutes less than the other players, he still produced more efforts on goal, with 22, and 12 of those have been inside the box, which again is the top for any midfielder in the game over the last 6 weeks. So certainly he is getting chances. He may not necessarily be converting them as regular as we'd like, but with Norwich in action this week and next week, I think Snodgrass is certainly one to be considering. I mean, he's getting a chance every 21 minutes, and he's creating one every 43 minutes. So that kind of goes to show you what he's at. Unfortunately, I suppose you can argue the fact that Norwich don't have a striker there to create or to convert the chances that he is creating. Maybe that may change if Hooper can start picking it up a bit, but certainly he's probably the only one in that fixture I'd have a look at.
All right.
And maybe just a slight outside shout of a clean sheet for Norwich, but you know, Villa at home are always capable of catching you, especially with the pace they have of Feynman and Ballinahor.
All right. Swansea Crystal Palace, second last game. Swansea are in action tonight. We're recording this on Thursday morning.
League.
So they are.
I'm staying away from this one.
They're in Napoli tonight.
Yeah, well, Swansea are notoriously bad after Europa League. I think they've only won one game in the league after they've played midweek, so I wouldn't particularly be looking too far there. And Palace, listen, maybe there's something to be had. We spoke briefly about Ince coming into the side there, and a 5.5 he might be one to consider. And Palace again do play next week, so a 5.5 million, maybe having a look at bringing in Tom Ince
and punching if you haven't got that extra 0.5. He's only 5.
Yeah, punching also is there or thereabouts. One of those may not do you any harm for the next 2 weeks.
All right, last game, and it's a good game and an interesting game on Sunday, and I think we're going to get a big reaction from Spurs as they host Cardiff.
Yeah, well, again, both of these teams play this week and next, so you have nothing to worry about there. However, Cardiff have only won one game under Solskjaer, and it's slightly worrying. Performances have been good, but they're not getting the results. For me, there's only one player at Cardiff really worth looking at the moment, and a 4.3 million Craig Noon is probably the best of it, really. I'm not going to look too much outside of that. It's more Tottenham this week. I fancy Tottenham for a clean sheet, so you're looking at the likes of Lloris, Walker, Dawson, and I needed defenders at the back for Tottenham.
Kirikesh.
Kirikesh, maybe.
Kirikesh is out.
Is he out?
Yeah, Kirikesh is out.
Well, there you go. That answers that question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yes,
they have a couple of
Walker's
problems.
a doubt as well going into this one. So, I mean, for me, I'd actually have a look at Dawson at 5.2. He's probably the cheapest option that maybe going to play. Kyle Naughton, I'm not overly fond of.
Vertonghen's expensive.
Yeah. I think Paulinho as well is one to look at. He's 2 goals in his last 4 games. Certainly, I'd have a look at him. Yeah. He's a midfielder that's going to play the next 2 weeks.
And Bentaleb looks great value at 4.5.
Yeah, I'm not sold. I'm very, very cautious about jumping on this one. I mean, always getting the game time. I mean, he's played. I think he's played almost every game, I think, since Sherwood has come in. But he 2 assists against Newcastle. Newcastle were poor. I wouldn't read too much into it, and I'm not expecting, like I said before, I'm not expecting a whole lot for him. And Adebayor is probably your best option then up front. You have a striker that's going to play 2 weeks. Yeah. Very disappointed he didn't do anything last week, having brought him in, but I brought him in last week with the next 2 weeks in mind, so I'm not overly cut up about it. I mean, he's 5 goals in his last 6 outings, and 5 goals and an assist in his last 6 outings, so I'd be fancying him to do something this week. Next week against Chelsea, you wouldn't back against them doing something sneaky.
No. Right, that was all of the games in Gameweek 28. Captain's push, final push for all the points. Double your points.
This week we're just going to focus on this week and not worry about who's playing next week. Yes. Daniel Sturridge for me is still thereabouts. It's very difficult.
Away to Southampton, I have to say I came to the same conclusion.
It's very difficult not to fancy him to do something.
I mean, there's a couple of options. Hazard away to Fulham, Giroud away to Stoke, and Paulinho at home to Cardiff.
Wouldn't be sold on Paulinho. I'd probably go Adebayor if I was looking for a captain out of that one. But if you really want to go for the outside shout, take the long road round.
Shane Long
against Newcastle,
and
because Newcastle on the road have been terrible.
Seamus Coleman home to West Ham. He might pop up with a couple.
I'm not fancying Everton for a clean sheet. But really, listen, main contenders, if you're gonna keep it sensible, it's got to be Sturridge for Liverpool, Hazard for Fulham. And then it's a toss-up between Adebayor and Giroud. I'd probably go Adebayor against Cardiff rather than Giroud against Stoke.
Okay, that's your captain's picks. Well done. What will we tell you? That live time starts at 10:30 on Saturday morning and
What a
finishes at
surprise.
11:30.
Yeah.
For a change.
Yeah, why not? Let's mix it up.
And just to be really radical, you're going to do it on Twitter this week.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Just, you know.
Why not? Live time, hashtag live time for all your last minute team news, rumours, gossip and advice, most importantly. All of that. Phil McGrath will be on the end of that Twitter machine somewhere in the world this Saturday on behalf of fantasypremierleaguetransfers.com, the only place for all your best fantasy Premier League advice. That's it, really. That's all I have to say. Do you have anything else to say?
Bye-bye.
Time to get on that road again. On the road again. You know? The long road. You take the long road. I'm going to take the Yellow Bridge Road.